Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of in the trenches, tell it like it is reality therapy for personal, business, and real estate investing success. With your hosts, powerpreneurs, Angela Thomas and Ron Phillips. It's time to get real.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. I am Ron Phillips here with Heather Marchant yet again. Here for another exciting show. I know you guys have already subscribed and shared us with all of your friends. Keep doing that. Keep the questions coming. Today we're going to talk about, well, something you guys wanted to talk about, right, Heather? I mean, we got some...
Yeah, for a long time.
We've gotten a bunch of questions, and actually we get questions all the time about this particular topic. But neither Heather nor I quite qualified to talk about it. So we have our own answers, but we decided to bring someone else in today to help us out. Jim Burch, welcome to the show.
Hey, Ron, Heather, thank you so much. We appreciate letting us be a part of this today. Thank you.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're gonna talk about a subject that is so much fun. I mean, this is so good. So today's topic is LLCs, and Jim is the founder CEO of Easy Legal Planning, and they've helped thousands of people with revocable living trusts and LLCs, small business type stuff, right? All of this really fun,
Exciting.
Like I always tell people, I'm like, talking about death and taxes is nothing but pure joy. It brings bliss into your life every day. It's wonderful.
So Jim's done something pretty unique, actually. He's taken this topic, and his background is actually marketing, and so he's taken this and put it into really simple terms that even I can understand, and then because of that, he's been able to help thousands of people understand it, and he's going to help us understand it today. And I don't know about you, Heather, but really the thing that I get most out of this is that the hair. It's the hair. I know for those of you who cannot see, Jim's hair is, it's not.
Oh,
it's nice.
I love you even more for saying
as
that.
As a bald man, I can say that. I can say that I am now coveting the hair.
It is out of control right now, because not only is it like big and coiffed on top, but I've got this crazy like Grizzly Adams beard going on. So it is just too much hair for most people at this point in time. So, but I appreciate you saying that, Ron. Thank you.
Yeah. So LLCs secondary, hair primary in this particular episode. So
Yeah, the COVID-19 haircut, I think, is
right.
There's this not to go off on a tangent on hair, but there's this kid that bags the groceries. He has the best head of hair, man. Every time I go in there, I'm like, dude. And he just starts laughing. Every time he sees me now, he just starts laughing because he knows that I'm just coveting his hair. So
man crush on the hair or something.
Yeah, it's actually better than yours, Jim. I hate to say it. It's better. All right,
awesome.
Let's jump into our real topic, which is not hair.
Not hairstyles.
Not hairstyles. LLCs. And Heather, this is something that we get like all the time. And
yeah, just about every day I get a question about, how do I do this? I've heard, they usually will say, I've heard that I want to set up an LLC if I'm going to buy rental properties. And I don't really know why. They don't even know why they've heard that. Some people just say, I need to because I was told I need to.
By who? It was the trash collector told her that she probably should. Her brother's friend's cousin has an LLC with property in it, but really nobody knows. They just know they heard.
Yeah. Well, I told Jim a story that I was told by an attorney that is the best illustration I've had to dumb it down for me to understand why I needed an LLC. So I'll share it really fast. So there was a man, and this is a true story, who had his primary residence and then 3 rental properties, all where he lived in the same state. And he had a tenant in the basement unit that was asphyxiated by the furnace, and she passed away. And the family was able to prove negligence, that it wasn't maintained. And so he lost not only the 3 rental properties because he had to pay this in this massive lawsuit, But he also lost his primary residence. So he lost all of his real estate holdings. And he explained it to me by saying, if he would have set up an LLC and put even all 3 rental properties into one LLC, he would have lost his rental properties, but not his primary residence. Or if he had that property in one LLC by itself, he would have just lost that rental property in the lawsuit. And so it's like a light bulb went off that day, and I finally understood it, even though I'd been doing this for several years. I knew it was important and it was a good way to protect yourself, but I didn't fully grasp the benefits that way. So you said you get that question a lot though, Jim, right?
We do. And that's a great example. I mean, it really and truly is. I actually had one kind of similar. It was a guy that he lived in Texas and he had his primary and 7 properties. And he turned around the corner and it was kind of dusk and he couldn't see very well, ended up hitting somebody in a crosswalk and killed them. And they were suing him for everything. And he, again, same thing, he lost everything. And he was calling going, can I set up an LLC and dump all my property? And I'm like, no, after the fact, you can't do anything, once that bell has been rung. So you got to get all this stuff set up ahead of time. But anyhow, your example is great. That's a great and a perfect example.
Yeah, but adding to it that way is awesome, because I think some people can think it's only for if the tenant sues you or if there's a problem with that property. But it can be someone coming after you personally in a lawsuit, right? That they can. Right. So, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly, because something like that, it exceeded his auto insurance very quickly. And he had no umbrella policy. He just wasn't set up, which was kind of interesting because for somebody that owns 8 properties, that's a lot of properties. And he had a lot of equity in those properties. And you would think that somewhere during that path that somebody would have clued him in and said, you really probably ought to set things up properly, but it didn't happen until it was too late.
We find that a lot, Jim. People don't understand. They don't understand what the benefits of an LLC are. They don't know when they need the LLC versus insurance. Like, people are just generally speaking confused about the topic.
Yeah.
And
right.
I think a lot of people don't like talking to attorneys anyway. And so it's kind of like the dentist, I know I need to go to the dentist, but I'm probably not going to go unless I have the pain. And
right.
In the property world, it's kind of like dental, right? Once you have the pain, it's too late. Now you're going to have a root canal where you didn't have to have the root canal. And it's kind of similar. But tell us a little bit about what all of the benefits of the LLC. Why would someone want to do this?
Great question. One of the biggest benefits is really what we're talking about, which is liability. The liability protection is probably the biggest reason why people are setting up LLCs. Because essentially what an LLC is doing is it's drawing a line in the sand and saying, these are business assets and these are my personal assets. And so it separates or segregates things. Now, Heather, you're probably going to ask me this question because I know you get this question all the time as well. But a lot of people go, well, I've got 2 or 3 or even sometimes more than that rental properties. And they go, well, should I put them all into one LLC? And again, there's a few different trains of thought with doing that on the liability front of things. Because the thing that people have to understand is if they set up one LLC and they put all 3 of those properties into that one LLC, well, if that one LLC got sued, so again, let's say that one of the tenants got that's such a weird word. I'm having a hard time saying that this morning. Asphyxiated. Sorry with doing that. But if they were to sue that LLC and the LLC owns 3 properties, they're coming after those 3 properties. And so then it comes the complexity of people going, oh, well, then should I set up a separate LLC for each of my properties? And for liability purposes, the answer is yes. That obviously provides the most protection. But again, that also comes with you're setting up 3 LLCs and the cost of setting up those and the maintenance fees and the fees that come along with that. So that's some of the things that people have to take into consideration. Now, we do have another train of thought where people go, well, once I hit a certain amount of equity, then I'm going to create a second LLC. So sometimes they'll go, and this is different for everybody. Some people's risk tolerance and equity threshold is different. So sometimes people will say, once I have $50,000 of equity in a property, then I'm going to start dividing them. And sometimes people go, mine's 150,000. And some people go, mine's 300,000. Whatever that is, once your equity hits a certain amount, then people go, okay, now I'm going to set up a second LLC. So let's just say hypothetically it was 150,000 and they had 3 properties in that one LLC. Well, once that equity got above 150,000, then if they ended up getting another property or whatever, then they would start to separate it out and get, LLC number 2 going. But liability is one of the biggest reasons why people do the LLC. And the other thing that you have to understand about LLCs is it works both ways as well. So kind of in the example that I was giving, if let's say we had a client that they got in a car accident and it exceeded their auto insurance and they're getting sued personally. Well, they can get sued personally, but if they've got LLCs, they can't go after the LLC. So there's a separation there depending on where that liability is coming from. So that's one of the biggest things. And then the other side would be the taxing side of things, why a lot of people will set up LLCs. It just gives them an easier way of writing things off. And also, depending on how much money they're making, if somebody had a lot of properties that were in these different LLCs, their CPA or their accountant can structure things to really save them a lot of money in some different types of taxes. I was going to say, Heather, bless your heart. I can tell that something went down the wrong pipe there. So what had that happen? Had that happen before? So.
I have some air conditioning blowing really hard. So I think it just dried out my throat for a second. So I was over here muting myself. So
been there, done that.
Yeah.
But Ron, kind of going back to your initial, those are typically the 2 reasons why people will do the LLCs is they're setting up the LLCs to separate those business assets from their personal assets for liability purposes, and then for taxing purposes as well with doing that.
Yeah. So, LLCs I think they're a little bit scary to people too. Like they don't understand, so I've got this umbrella policy. Now I've exceeded the umbrella policy. So now I'm into that 150,000 that you were talking about, which is my threshold. And it's kind of above the umbrella policy. Now I need the LLC. And it starts to, in some people's brains, it starts to get really complicated, where this really isn't that complicated, but there's some things surrounding an LLC that people need to be aware of too. Maybe you can key us in on what those are. Like, what are some things, if I open this thing up, that I need to be aware of so that I don't screw it all up, right?
Perfect. No, that's a great question. Now, when you're first off, and again, I know, Heather, you get this question as well, and probably both of you, but people think it's going to be this knockdown, drag out, take a really long time to set up an LLC. They're like, is this going to take months to do? And the answer is no. Most of the time, the LLCs can be set up, some of them within 24 hours, some of them 7 to 14, business days. But typically it doesn't go too much, farther out than that. So usually within a 2-week period, everything's filed with the state and everything's ready to go. Now, in reference to the actual documents and to your point, Ron, of what they need to expect, when you're setting up an LLC, you have to file with the Secretary of State. Now, some states don't call it a Secretary of State. They call it like a division of corporation or a corporation commission. Same thing as the Secretary of State. It's just kind of an interchangeable term. But you have to file what are called articles of organization. Now, normally that's what we're doing. It's like we're preparing the articles of organization for the client. So that way everything is done the proper way and the clients aren't second guessing themselves going, did I do that right? Or did I fill that out the right way? And so on and so forth. Now, just so you're aware, it's also called like a certificate of organization, or some states call it a certificate of formation, all the same thing. So whether it's an articles of organization, a certificate of organization, a certificate of formation, same exact thing. It's the documents that are filed with the state saying, I'm registering my LLC. Here's the name that I want to function under in that state. And then a lot of states require ownership. So they'll be like, okay, who owns this LLC and what's the address? And then you also have to have what's called a registered agent. The registered agent is simply the person that receives the mail on behalf of the company. We're going to talk about that in just a second, a little bit more, if you happen to set up a business in another state. But you have to file those articles of organization. And then we also prepare what's called an operating agreement. So the operating agreement is kind of like the backbone of the business. That indicates who owns the business, what happens if they decided to bring on a business partner, or let's say it was a partnership and one of the partners wanted out. The operating agreement stipulates, okay, what happens, as an exit strategy, or what happens if somebody dies. So that's what the operating agreement is doing, is taking care of ownership and then some of those what ifs with doing that. And then the other document that we prepare is the employer identification number with the IRS. So it's technically called your federal employer identification number, but most people refer to it as a tax ID number. So all the time people will call and they're like, I need to get my tax ID number. And then sometimes we'll email them and say, hey, here's your federal employer identification number. And they're like, wait, I thought I needed a tax ID number. And we're like, that same thing. It's the same thing with doing that. But those are typically the three key documents that are needed to establish an LLC in any given state with doing that. Does that make sense, or did that answer that question though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So a follow-up question on that is, a lot of our clients are purchasing with a conventional loan. And then with a conventional loan, you cannot use an entity. You have to buy in your personal name. And so a lot of our clients are deeding the property post-closing into the LLC. Is that something that, I know a lot of questions I get is the lender has a due on sale clause that if I deed the property out of my name, it can cause the due on sale clause where you have to pay back the loan, right? That they can call the loan to. How do you handle that concern with clients?
Great question with that. And the first thing I always tell people is lenders are very familiar with LLCs, and this is not anything new. And so they're very, very aware. But also the most important and critical part of that is making sure that however the house is owned or the loan is owned, so whether it's an individual or if it's a husband and wife, they're both on that loan, they need to structure the LLC to match that or mimic that. So if it was an individual that was on the title of that property and on the loan, they would need to set up an individual LLC. So that way, when that property moves over to the LLC, the ownership structure is still the same. There are some states that are very particular about that, like meaning you couldn't set up, let's say that we had an individual that was on the loan and then they were married and said, well, I really wanted to have myself and my spouse on the LLC. And then they create this partnership LLC and then move the property over to that. That can create problems because it doesn't match the ownership structure. So as long as they're keeping that in mind of going, okay, however we own this property, the LLC needs to be structured the same way. They should be just absolutely fine on that. Again, most of the due on sale clause, obviously that's something that is in a lot of loans, but it's not something that they're obligated to do. So it's like if a lender caught wind that somebody had moved it over into an LLC, the first thing they're going to do is go, are they making their payments every month? And if they're making their payments, then a lot of times they go, well, we're not going to, rile the hornet's nest here, because again, they've got so many bad loans that they're going after that they have no incentive or no reason to go after somebody that's actually paying with that. So that's typically the approach that we tell people is, as long as the ownership structure is the same, you should be fine. And then again, as long as you're making your payments, don't miss payments, and then they're not going to be looking elsewhere with what's going on with that. So, but again, at the end of the day, lenders are very, very familiar. Oh, another thing that people aren't totally aware of is when you move a title or you deed the property over into the LLC, that doesn't just automatically notify the lender. Like, it's not like they get some notification that says, hey, the title's been moved over into an LLC. So because the title is recorded at the county recorder where that property is located, and it's completely separate from the loan. So again, it's not like they're getting notified and people are getting nervous going, oh no, my lender's going to be notified that I just moved this property over into an LLC. But lenders are very familiar with LLCs and what they do and why people set them up. It's nothing new. Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of our clients do have one spouse on the conventional loan and then deed it into an LLC that is jointly owned. But
right.
I've said the same thing though. It's a spouse. You're not deeding it to a business partner or someone that's not related to you. So it's usually pretty low risk. But there is the due on sale clause in every conventional loan I've seen, right? So
Right.
that's just something that you maybe have to be comfortable with, taking a small risk that, they could call the loan due. So another question that I get a lot is, how do I name my LLC?
My attorney hates it when it comes down to naming the next LLC. I actually usually tell them I don't care. Call it whatever you want. But yeah.
Which is so, again, it's funny, Ron, that you just said that. This honestly is probably the biggest hang up for most people. I'm not kidding. I'll talk to people and they're like, okay, we're ready to go. And I'm like, what do you want to name the LLC? And they're like, Sometimes it'll take them literally 2 months. They're trying to figure out a name, and then they'll call back 2 months later and they're like, I finally came up with a name. And I'm like, it took you 2 months to come up with a name? And they're like, yeah, sorry, I wanted to make sure that this is dialed in.
Car wreck during
Totally. I know, right? And so anyhow, the name really and truly does not matter. Although it does have to be a name that nobody else is utilizing in that state. So most people, every once in a while, people will say, oh, I want to do, something very basic. I'm trying to think of something basic off the top of my head, like, ABC rental properties.
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be taken by somebody in the, in the state. So you got to be a little bit more creative, but but if
I've been trying to get Wayne Enterprises for so long.
Totally.
My middle name is Wayne, and I keep thinking I should have it, but
Ron, I did not know that. That's funny.
I've been trying to get it, but I can't get it.
Hey, we're going to keep our fingers crossed. If I see that pop up somewhere, I'm going to let you know. We're going to
know, man. I'll incorporate in that state unless it's California or New York.
Totally. So in reference to the name, some people are very creative and it's very easy, but I always tell people have a plan A and a plan B. Because if you come back and say, oh, let's name it this, and it's not available, instead of having to call back and go back and forth and try to figure out another name, just come up with 2 names right out of the gates. And then that way we've got option, 1 and option 2 already ready to go. Now, if you're not very creative, just use the address of the rental property. That's one of the easiest things to do because it's a very unique name, super simple to do that. And literally it's the address, LLC. That would be the name of that. So if you're not creative, just do that. Yeah. So that's how that works with doing that. Did that answer that question though, Ron? Did that make sense on that with the name?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I think one thing that we haven't talked about is the out-of-state LLCs and what you need to know. And why do people do it, I guess? Like, why do you have an LLC registered outside of the state you live in? Maybe they don't even understand that.
Right, great question with doing that. Now, a typical rule of thumb for most people is wherever the property is physically located, then that's where you should establish the LLC. And again, it doesn't have to be like that all the time, and I'm going to explain what I mean, but that's kind of a general rule of thumb is if you've got property or you've got a brick and mortar building there, that state wants you to set up the LLC there. Or the other option is you can set up and establish the LLC in your home state. That's called your domestic state. So again, let's just say, again, I live in Utah. So let's say I set up an LLC in Utah. That would be my domestic state. But if I ended up having property, let's say in Alabama, I would need to register my Utah domestic LLC in Alabama as a foreign LLC. And so as long as you're registered one way or the other, it's completely fine with doing that. So as long as I've either got my LLC registered here in Utah and then registered as a foreign LLC in Alabama, because that's where property is physically located, and they want, because you've got property there, the state wants you to have a presence or an LLC established there. Or we do the flip side, where we would register the LLC in Alabama, and then that would be domestic. So it would be a domestic LLC in Alabama, and then I would have to register it as a foreign LLC in my home state. So if I did register an LLC in Alabama, I'd have to register it as a foreign entity here in Utah. And a lot of people ask, and they go, well, why did you have to register it in Utah? If the business is in Alabama and the property is in Alabama, why do you have to register it in Utah? And the answer is to set up my business bank account. Because if I go into the bank, and again, whether it was a large bank or a small bank, and I said, hey, I need to set up my LLC or my business bank account, when they look at the articles of organization and they say, oh, this is an Alabama business. I'm going to say, yeah, this is set up in Alabama. And they're going to say, oh, well, that's fine, but we need you to register as a foreign LLC here in Utah so that we can see on the records here with the Utah Division of Corporations that you're registered so we can open up the business bank account.
Is that difficult to do, Jim? Is it difficult?
No, it's really, really easy. Literally, it's usually a one-page document. Now, one thing that you do have to do is, let's say that I registered in Alabama and I was registering as a foreign LLC here in Utah. Well, most states require what's called a certificate of existence. So basically what happens is we just have to go online and order. And typically, it's anywhere from $10 to $50, on the high end, to get a certificate of existence. And all that is it's basically the Secretary of State is sending a little certificate that says they are an LLC and it was established on such and such date. And usually that has to be done usually within 3 to 6 months. So like sometimes people go, oh, I have a certificate of existence, but it's 2 years old. Well, unfortunately, that's not going to work. You have to have one that is usually within 3 to 6 months. And every state's a little bit different, and they will tell you, the state will say, you need to have, a certificate of existence that's no older than 3 months or whatever the case is. So it's very easy and very straightforward.
You can't not pay your taxes. That's right. the real
right.
deal here, right?
So I have a question, follow up. Why do you want to open a bank account with your LLC?
Great question. So we get this all the time because people are like, do I need a separate bank account? And the answer is yes. You want to keep everything separate. And again, it goes back to the liability side of things. If you're commingling all of your personal assets and your business assets, the LLC probably isn't going to work, because if you're getting sued, one of the first things that the attorneys are going to do is they're going to say, okay, let's look at the structure. Let's look how money is going into the LLC and how money is coming out of the LLC. And if all of a sudden it's completely commingled, they're going to be like, you're not running this thing like a business. And they call it piercing the corporate veil. They could pierce that corporate veil and go after them. So you have to make sure that you're keeping very good records and that they're completely separate. I had this question the other day, and it was really kind of funny because we always indicate that to people of saying, okay, when you set up your business bank account, make sure that your renters are paying the money to the LLC, not to you personally. Or if they're going to do an auto draft, make sure it goes right into your business account. And somebody called back and they said, oh, well, I ended up having a renter and they just paid me and then I just deposited into my account and then moved it right over into my business account. Will that work? And I was like, no, that's not going to, that's
the opposite of working.
That's the opposite of working with that. I said, you have to get your, the tenant to write the check or deposit that into the business account. And then from the business account, then you can pay yourself, after you paid any mortgages or whatever your expenses are or deductions, you can do that and then pay yourself out of that. But you just want to make sure that the money is going into the business account first so you can show very distinct and clear records because think of it like this, you're running a business. And I know that sounds weird because people are like, oh, it's just a rental property. Well, you're in the business of a rental property and you have to run it as such with doing that. So that's one of we get that question all the time, and it always kind of makes me laugh with doing that, because the answer is an absolute yes with making sure that it's separate.
Okay, no, that's perfect. And what if they've been doing it wrong so far? Can they change and get their books right to protect themselves, and then they're okay? Okay.
Yep, absolutely with that. Oh, another thing that I was going to mention while we're talking about that is the lease agreement. So if somebody sets up an LLC, they need to redo their lease agreements with the tenant so that it's no longer between the individual and the tenant. It's now between the LLC and the tenant. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but professional management, it wouldn't matter, right?
Oh, right. Yeah. They have. Okay. So yes, if they're being professionally managed, then then that's a different thing. But just if they were doing it by themselves and they didn't have professional management, and then again.
It's really important, though, that people understand the reason why that is. So let me make sure I clear it up, because the reason that you have to have your LLC on the lease if you don't have a professional property management company is because the lease is between that LLC and the tenant. When you have a professional management company, the LLC has an agreement with the management company. So it's really important you still have the LLC that has the agreement. So the agreement's not in your personal name when you have an LLC, it's in the LLC's name. So you still have it. It's just indirect because it goes through the management company, and the management company then has the lease with the tenant, right? So the same principle, you can't commingle just because you have a management company. That still doesn't work. You still have to have a separate account. You still have to have your LLC with the agreement. The agreement's just between you and the management company instead of you and the tenant.
Perfect.
So hopefully
well said. And thanks for clearing that up, Ron. Again, that's perfect. Let me go over one other thing, just because I'm starting to get these things are coming to my mind of questions that all of a sudden come to into play here. Yeah. Another question that people ask is they go, what about the title of the house? So if I have this LLC and I've got all these lease agreements with between the LLC and my tenants, and I've got all that, and I'm having them deposit the money into the bank, my business bank account, then they go, can I leave the title of the house in my individual name, or does it also need to get moved over and transferred into the LLC? And I know we kind of talked a little bit about that earlier, but I just wanted to kind of hit on that point again. People miss that all the time, where they get this LLC set up and they're running the LLC, but the title of the rental property is still in their personal name, or it's in their spouse and their names as joint tenants. Yeah. That can't happen. That has to get, that has to get transferred over into the LLC. And the way that gets transferred is by recording a deed at the county where that property is located. So if the property is located in Alabama, it's in Montgomery County, the deed has to be recorded in Montgomery County to transfer the title out of the husband and wife's names as joint tenants and move it over into the LLC. I know we touched on that a little bit before, but we didn't really go into connect the dots on doing that. So I just, again, wanted to give you a heads up on that one.
Yeah. Great point.
For those people, I mean, for people who don't do this all the time, this likely sounds really complicated. And it's not. It's really not that hard. There's a lot of little moving pieces there. But when you work with a professional company that does this all the time, they make it super easy, right?
Yeah, right.
It makes all the difference.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, if you try to do this on your own, it kind of is complicated. I've actually never done it on my own, so I don't know how complicated it is. But I'm sure that it is really complicated.
Right. You want to know? It's
so many LLCs. My gosh, my daughter, who was my assistant the other day, she said, do you have this, XYZ company LLC? And I'm like, yes, I do. She goes, well, I've never heard of it. I said, well, add it to the list then, because we need to make sure we keep track of it. You can get to the point where it's a little bit absurd how many LLCs you have, but the process is the same for all of them. It's not that complicated if you have somebody who can help you through the process and make it easy for you, right?
Right. And to that point, Ron, just because, again, when you were saying that you hadn't done it yourself, I talked to a lot of people that have tried to do it themselves, and some of them actually do it properly, but they're always second guessing themselves. That probably is the biggest thing for most people, is they don't want the stress of second guessing themselves, going, oh, did I really do that right? Yeah. And that's one of the biggest issues that we run into all the time.
And it doesn't make any difference because I screwed it up.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I think we're down to only a couple more questions. So can you save taxes by setting up an LLC in a state that has no income tax?
No. I was going to say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you, Heather. That was not a yell at you. I'm not kidding. I get
that was a yell at everybody else.
That was a yell at everybody else. I get that question all the time. They're like, I've been reading on the interwebs that I want to set up an LLC in Nevada because they don't have any state tax, and that's going to be awesome because that'll save me in state taxes. It does not work like that. You have to pay taxes wherever you live. So if you live somewhere other than Nevada, it doesn't make sense to set up a Nevada LLC for income tax, to save on the state income tax. So it just, so the answer is no on doing that.
So if you're sick of paying ridiculous income taxes, move out of New York, move out of
right.
move out of California. I can keep naming them, but you guys know where you live. You just suck it up and pay the taxes if you want to live in those places. Otherwise, move like everybody else is doing.
Yeah. Move to Nevada.
Yeah, I was going to say it's
there are
true.
other states other than Nevada that don't have state income taxes. So, choose wisely. There are some with oceans. There's some with some great, cool little mountains. And
Washington, right?
Yeah, I mean, Florida has no state income tax. Pretty sure Texas doesn't, and Tennessee doesn't. Yeah, there's a lot of states catching on these days. That people are kind of spent on paying, pun intended, on paying taxes.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, and then I guess in relation to that, I guess if you're setting up an LLC in Alabama, to go back to our example, but you live in Utah, you need to have a physical address in that.
I'm so glad you reminded me of that, because that is a really important thing. So thank you for jogging my memory on that one. This is a big one that people are unaware of. So if you set up a business in another state, whether it is a domestic LLC or a foreign LLC, and that's where people, again, they sometimes don't connect the dots on that. So let's say that I ended up setting up an LLC in Alabama. I don't live in Alabama, so I don't have a physical address to receive the mail in Alabama. But if I'm going to set up an LLC, they require to have a registered agent or somebody that has a physical address. So we have a third-party company that we've worked with for years. They're called InCorp Services. They're based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and they charge $99 a year. You can actually get it less than that if you want to commit to more years. So like if you were like, hey, I know I'm gonna have this rental property for 5 years, then they charge like $64 a year or something like that. So it can get cheaper if you do more years. But the point being is, you have to have a physical address in that state so that when you register the documentation, the state goes, oh, you've got a physical address. It cannot be a P.O. box. People are like, oh, I'll just get a P.O. box in the state. You cannot do a P.O. box. It has to be a physical address. And that's why you have to hire a third-party company to do that. Now, it also works the same way. Like, let's say I set up the LLC here in Utah. Well, I live here in Utah, so I don't need to hire a third-party registered agent because I live here. I can be my own registered agent. But if I have property in Alabama, I still have to register my LLC as a foreign LLC in Alabama, and I still have to have a registered agent.
Okay.
So again, it goes both ways. Because sometimes people go, oh, well, if I set up the LLC in my domestic state, then I won't have to pay InCorp in the state where my rental properties are. And the answer is no. You still have to pay InCorp, because even if you file a foreign LLC, they require a registered agent.
Yeah, good point. A lot of our property managers will do it for our clients as well. So,
very good.
Yeah, ask your property manager to see. I have a couple that charge like a one-time setup fee, and then they'll just get your mail from then on out. So
that's great. That's great if you've got that.
Keep that in mind too. You can just check and see if they're willing to do it. If not, InCorp Services, that sounds like a pretty inexpensive option too. So
yeah, right. $8 a month. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't care who really and truly, I just use InCorp because we've worked with a lot of different companies, and they seem to do a really good job. And they're on the I hate saying cheaper. They're on the more cost-effective side of things than a lot of the other companies that are out there. They're charging $130 to $160 a year for the exact same thing. So
yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah.
So well, awesome.
This has been great.
Yeah, so informative. I have
love LLCs. I mean, this is just like so fun. LLCs are so fun.
It's been a whole just ball of joy for me as well. It's actually been a pleasure. It's fun. I'm glad that you guys have good sense of humors about this as well, because literally, talking about liability and death and tax. I mean, it's not that fun to talk about, but it's a really important thing.
At least it's not taxes. So we've got that going for us, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Although we did talk about it in taxes, but it's true.
So Jim, if people listen to this and they said, man, I really need to do this, and I'd love Jim to just do it for me, how do they get a hold of you, and where can they find you?
You bet. So a couple of things. Usually what happens is they're talking to Heather, and then Heather just emails me with the client's information, and then I'll respond back to them and get them on my calendar.
Happy to do that. Absolutely.
Right. So that's an easy thing. You can also visit the website, which is just easylegalplanning.com, and make sure you don't spell easy, E-Z. It's E-A-S-Y. Like, we get that all the time. And I'm like, no, it's easy. It's like E-A-S-Y, easy. And they're like, oh, I was thinking like E and then Z.
Oh, you mean like not text language. It's
right,
like,
exactly.
Like the King's English, like that old time.
I'm like, I am not a millennial here. I was going to say, I am not a millennial. So no, we've got the full easy. So Easy Legal Planning. My personal email is just Jim at Easy Legal Planning. And then again, I'll give my phone number right here is that okay? Can I give my phone number? So it's,
wait, no.
He's like, don't do it. Go ahead. Okay. So it's 801-656-7137. And again, you can call me or text me on that number as well. But yeah. Oh, and then cost-wise, we didn't even go over this. So cost-wise is setting up an LLC.
I thought it was free for all of our listeners. Free for all of our listeners. Right?
I'm like, thanks a lot. Right? No, I'm just kidding. So now, one good thing is we did negotiate a little deal. So on the first LLC that you guys do, you do get a $50 discount. Our normal cost is $315 to set up all of the paperwork, but you guys get a $50 discount, so it's $265. And that does not include the state filing fees. And every state is a little bit different. Some states are really inexpensive when you're setting up an LLC, and some states are very expensive. If you happen to live in Illinois and you're listening to this, I apologize ahead of time. Their filing fee is $500 just for the filing fee. But anyhow, that doesn't include the filing fee. So the $265 for the first LLC, that gets your articles of organization, your operating agreement, your tax identification number, and gets all those. We prepare all those for you. We also get you all set up with NCorp. If you decided to use NCorp, we get that all set up and taken care of for you as well. But that also doesn't include the $99 fee with doing that. So you'd essentially have $265 plus the $99 if you are establishing an LLC in a different state, and then whatever those state filing fees are with doing that.
Okay.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Well, we appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so guys, if you have other questions or anything like that about LLCs, make sure you reach out to Jim. And if you like the show, which of course you did because it was awesome, then you should hit the little thumbs up button and leave us a review, share us with your friends and everything like that. We'll be back next week with something equally as awesome, and we'll see you then.
Thanks.
Hey, thank you both.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.